Chapter 37. As certain as taxes and as slow as paperwork, they come. With his X-Wing nestled in a frozen lava tube on the side of a volcano, Corran watched as paired interceptors flew search patterns over the lunar surface. They'd pushed enough power to their sensors that even with having them focused directly downward, enough energy bled off to register on his passive receptors. Whistler had detected differences in the energy signatures of each sensor unit and had isolated a dozen different interceptors. That means 10 squints didn't make it back from their pursuit. Given that the rogues had only 15 minutes to play, that's very good work. He reached up and tapped the transparisteel at the rear of the cockpit. Whistler, they've been at this search stuff for nearly half an hour. Have you got the solution worked up yet? The droid piped a jeer at him. Hey, just asking. Corran started his engines and shunted power to the weapons control. He armed 2 proton torpedoes. Ready when you are. A countdown clock appeared on his console and slowly started running down. The squints continued their back and forth grid search pattern, moving ever closer to his position. From the second he saw what they were doing, he asked Whistler to time the runs. They remained constant for speed and duration, which told Corran the pilots had done exactly what he would have. They programmed the search pattern into their navigational computers and let it run on autopilot, which means we know where they'll be in 35.3 seconds. He nodded grimly. I'm dead, but you'll be dead sooner, and that's a bit of a victory, to be sure. It occurred to Corran that he was angry about dying. That emotion seemed on the surface to be rather logical, but emotions rarely were. Had someone described his current situation to him and asked him how he'd feel, he would have told them he'd been scared out of his wits. The fact was, however, that the anger overshadowed the fear. He took a deep breath and forced himself to relax. Fear and anger aren't right here. He knew that going out to bring the interceptors down just so he'd take more of them with him when he died was wrong. He didn't know if the pilots were clones or volunteers or conscripts or mercenaries, and who they were didn't really matter. The only reason he had for fighting against them was the same one he'd had for going after the squints down on Borlius. I want to stop the Empire from taking lives. I'm not an Avenger. I'm here to protect others. He smiled. Somehow it seemed right that he, son and grandson of men who protected others in Corsac, had followed them into Corsac and had ended up here with the rebellion. His life, his father's life, his grandfather's life had all been devoted to safeguarding others. And now the guys on the ground and Sam's bomber jocks will get protected. The timer went to 0. Corran hit the trigger. 2 proton torpedoes streaked out from the launch tubes on either side of the X-Wing. Because they were programmed to reach a certain point at a certain time, Corran did not need a target lock on the pair of squints flying past. A kilometer separated them from the X-Wing, and the torpedoes went from launch to target in under half a second. The first torpedo stabbed through the closest interceptor and detonated. The explosion vaporized the squint, reducing it to its component molecules. The second torpedo actually overshot its target, but went off when it reached its programmed range. The blast crumpled the starboard wing. The interceptor began to roll through a tight downward spiral, then slammed into a basalt monolith and exploded. Shoving the throttle forward, Corran held the stick steady as his snub fighter shot from the lava tube. Once clear, he hauled back on the stick and climbed. He saw other interceptors break their search patterns, but none of them immediately moved after him. Their sensors were still oriented towards the ground. He flipped his weapons control over to lasers and set them on quad fire. It would slow his overall rate of fire, but a solid hit was a kill, and he needed all the help he could get. Inverting the X-Wing, he took a quick look at the interceptors as he flew past the volcano's crater. Spotting a pair of targets moving towards where the first squints had gone down, he rolled the fighter up on the starboard S-foil and came around in a wide curve. He dove and leveled out on the small valley between the volcano and a meteor crater. Climbing at the last second, He rose up over the broad lunar plain and sent 2 bursts of laser fire into the belly of a squint. The starfighter obliged him by melting into a metallic fog that instantly condensed and rained down on the moon. Whistler hooted proudly. Darned right. Horn pulls ahead of the Bacta boy. Corkscrewing his ship into a weave, Corran avoided the retribution of the squint's wingman. He leveled out for a second, then cut the fighter hard right. 90 degrees from his original track, he leveled out again, then climbed and did a wing over to port that pointed him straight back at the interceptor that had tried to stay on his tail. Corran rolled, shot, melted some armor from the squint, and broke hard right again. He shook his head in response to Whistler's question. No, I didn't think I killed it. Burned him a bit, though. Corran rolled the X-Wing through inversion and hit the left rudder to again carry himself back across his own trail. Green spears of laser light crisscrossed through the moon's thin air as the interceptors converged on his ship. Whistler toted 9 up on the monitor and made the closest ones flash red on the screen. Static hissed through Corran's helmet as occasional hits weakened his shields, but energy shunted from lasers reinforced it quickly enough. He glanced at his fuel indicator. As much as we could teach them about flying, it's time we changed some of the rules here. He broke left and climbed, then came over, inverted, and pointed his fighter at the volcano's cone. We'll see if these guys are such hot stuff in the places where hot stuff used to spew. The astromech droid splashed a message on his console. Yes, inviting them into the caldera will be fine. The enclosed area will hurt them more than it does me, just like it hurt the ties that Wedge nailed on Ratchuk. Corran brought the fighter down into the crater and throttled back to 0 thrust. He cut in the repulsor lift engines and powered them up so he hung suspended in the middle of the obsidian arena. As he pointed the fighter's nose towards the sky, he glanced at Whistler's reply to his earlier statement. Yeah, 9-to-1 odds are hardly fair. The X-Wing shook violently, as if a titanic child had grabbed it in an invisible fist. Whistler hooted anxiously, and Corran felt his stomach turn inside out. Tractor beam. It's all over. The astromech droid wailed piteously. Corran read the message on his console and shook his head. Hey, it's not your fault. You're telling me the odds isn't why they evened them. He brought his torpedo control up again as the first interceptor streaked over the lip of the volcano's crater. Sensors forward, Whistler. Time to remind them that trapping a rogue doesn't make him dead, just deadlier. And that's the end of the chapter. Hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you soon.